Welcome back. We are starting to paint today, so make sure before we even get going, we want to make sure that you've got your space set up. So maybe you put down some kind of covering on your work area. Maybe you put a smock on, or you turn your clothes inside out so that we don't worry about if you get paint on them, that the paint might not come off. Having some water, like a little water dish nearby, not a bad idea. You might want to get like a paper plate to mix your paints on. I am going to be using this painter's palette that I stole from my kids' art closet. So whatever you've got works out well, okay? We'll also need our paint brushes. The biggest paintbrush that we have with that sort of curved edge, that's going to be the best one for this first layer, our base layer, also known as our shade layer. So as we learned, our shade layer is going to include a little bit of black in it. Remember, black is going to be our strongest, most pigmented paint color. So we want to use the tiniest amount of it when we start mixing. When I say the tiniest amount, I want you to imagine a carpenter ant in your head. And you know how their bodies are broken up into the 3 different segments? Imagine how small their head is. That's how much black I want you to use. Okay? You can always add more, but once you've added it in, you can't take it out. So, yeah, only the tiniest amount at a time. All right, so our base layer is going to be our thickest layer. That's what you're seeing here. You can see that I'm choosing different colors for each section of my neon sign. I've got 1984. That's the year of somebody I know. They were born then. They're like really old though, so definitely not me. Anyway, okay, continuing on. 1984 vibes is what we've got going on for this neon sign with the cool high ponytail like back in the 80s. Woo! All right, so we've got green here, blue going on up here, and I'm going to do purple for the word vibes. Okay, so once again, I'm going to take my paint color and I'm going to mix the tiniest amount of black to it. Now, the one thing that we might find, unfortunately, with some of the paints is that they are going to be what's called transparent. So transparent is like what this plastic wrap is. It's very see-through, whereas opaque is what my hand is. It is not see-through. We like it when our paint is opaque and not see-through because it coats really well, right? When it's transparent, you can kind of see the paper showing through, and you can kind of see that happening in some of the areas here, especially like the middle of that 8. Do you see how you can see the black of the paper showing through? So some of our paints are going to be a little more transparent, some are more opaque. You can kind of tell by how watery they are, and this paint here, this type of paint, is definitely very transparent, but I have a trick. So if you find that your paint is transparent, the trick is going to be to add a paint color that's more opaque. So white is actually very opaque. So what I can do, I know this is going to change, obviously going to tint my purple here, but I'm going to add some white to it just to build some thickness and opacity to that paint. And we're going to mix those together. So it is going to, because we're tinting it, we're adding that white to it, it is going to make it a little bit more pastel almost in color because of that. But at least it'll paint on nicer. Okay, so there we go. Then, I don't know if you can see this, but right here I've actually got some black paint that I put into a separate location because I know if I squirt my black paint right into there, it's already way too much, like 100 times too much in fact. So I always put it in a different location, and then I'm just going to grab the teeniest, tiniest, like I'm just showing you guys. When I say an ant's head size of black paint, I mean it, because even with this tiny amount, it will start to turn. I hope you guys can see this on the camera. I know sometimes our video cameras don't show that too much, but it's already starting to turn that color darker. Now I did have a lot of the purplish white, so I'm going to grab just the tiniest amount more of the black No, it's not wanting to pick it up. Oop, that's way too much. Okay, that should be good. Let's see what happens there. I can always add more. I cannot subtract it. There, this is going to be enough. So don't add in too much right away. Okay. Also, you want to make sure you're mixing enough of that paint each time we're painting throughout the next few days. Always make sure that you're mixing enough because it's almost impossible to remix the exact same tint or shade of that color. And then you'll notice I'm covering it with plastic wrap too, because I want to make sure that it doesn't dry out. Another trick would be to mix it into like a sandwich bag and mix it right in there and then seal it shut. So that's another way you could do it as well. Just find what works for you and what you have at home. Okay, now that I've got my shade color all mixed up, I like how it's looking, it's ready to go. I am then going to take that nice big brush and I'm going to start painting that first layer. Our goal for today is going to be that before next class, we've got this base layer painted for any words and or images we have on our neon sign. Okay, then next time we'll work on the next layer and we'll just keep on building up, but we need to let it dry in between. You're noticing too as I'm doing this, do you see how it's still a bit transparent. Once again, some colors are going to be better than others. So if you find that your color doesn't need to be mixed with white because it's just nice and opaque as it is, then yeah, jackpot, good job. But if you find that it is too transparent, do this trick of mixing it with white and hopefully that'll help you out. You'll also notice that as I paint, I tend to move my paper a lot. Helps me get a better angle so I can get nice, crisp, clean lines along those edges, which I want to make sure that I'm doing. And then of course, if I find that it is still transparent in some areas, like you can see right there, it's very transparent, that's where I will finish painting the first layer and I'll come back and I'll paint it again. I'll paint another layer right over the top of it until it looks good. So this isn't like, oh, just because I painted over that section once doesn't necessarily mean that that is done. It's done when it looks good, when it looks as opaque as you want it to be. I'm going to roll up my sleeve here. I don't want to ruin my beautiful RVA sweatshirt. It's one of my favorites. So we'll roll up the sleeves and we keep on painting. So I'm not going to make you guys watch me do this whole thing, but you can see once that dries a bit, I would go back over it again, add some more layers and opacity to it. And once again, our goal between today and next class would be to have that first thick shade base layer for our whole sign done and ready to go. See you next time.